Okay, everybody, we're going to call the October 19th meeting of the Lake Quinsigamond Commission to order. Thank you all for coming. First, this meeting is going to be video and audio recorded, so just bear that in mind, and so you'll be able to watch it as well later on if you want, and people should be able to see it at home. So we're going to review and act on the acceptance of the minutes of September 2022.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes of September 2022.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Unanimous. Number 2, review and approval of bills and expenses, which we don't have. None. Okay, guess that's good. And we're going to go into public participation, but how many people are here to talk about, in public participation, to talk about something besides the no wake zone? No one? Oh, you are?
Yes,
Okay, so, come on up. No, come on up. Just tell us who you are and where you're from. And for the rest of the folks that are going to speak on that, we're going to have it kind of set up like a hearing, and we'll talk about that when we get to the line item. Okay? So everyone will get a chance to talk.
this mic or that mic, sir?
Either one. You can set the table if you want. That's
Okay,
fine.
thank you. My name is Joe Giarusso. I live at 59 Sewell Drive. I am technically a Boylston resident. I live on Newton Lake over there.
Yep.
So I wanted to just come here tonight. I'm representing 7 houses that live in the Sewell Drive neighborhood.
Yep.
It's a dirt road. All of us abut Newton Lake. What I want to say on behalf of all of them is that we do fully support all of these efforts by the commission to treat any of the waters over there. We have a weed problem as bad as yours, if not worse. We do appreciate that. We are looking certainly for a lowering of the drawdown of the water there. We are fully in support of that. And as a Boylston resident, I did notice the other day that there is a seat on their Conservation Commission that is open. Either my wife or I are going to explore being on that. And if that could be of any help in terms of the drawdown of Newton Lake, we would we would absolutely love to be a part of that. All right.
That would be a tremendous help. Going through Conservation Commission in Boylston, our last round, we went to get the permits for the weed treatment, and your neighbors will be able to tell you this because most of them are in on the Zoom meetings that we had. It was onerous. It took a long time, and it was expensive for us as well because we had to do peer reviews and things like that. So that would be extremely helpful.
Okay.
To have someone on there that kind of understood what the issues were.
Okay.
On that.
Great.
I mean, conservation is. The conservation reps can tell you is it's work.
Okay. No, I'm sure it is.
So
I'll put my wife on that one.
good luck. Yeah. Good luck, and thank you for stepping up with that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Joe. Okay. Our next item, commissioners' reports. I'm going to just go through one thing. I'm going to kind of come back to what we talked about a little bit last month is jet skis. As we know, Indian Lake has permanently banned jet skis on Indian Lake. We did some research to kind of find out what the actual statutes were and what our options are in this. One of the things I found out in this whole thing was that there is written in the statute a piece there that says that if you're under 75 acres in a great pond, jet skis are automatically banned from your lake. What it does not say, or anywhere I could find, and we need to kind of further review this, is that if you're a lake over 75 acres in a great pond, that you cannot ban them. So I did not see that language at all in any of the legislation that I reviewed. And it was a fairly deep dive, but I would rather have help from some type of counsel to figure that out. Another interesting option that I saw in there was it's kind of obscure, and it was written in part of when it was defining the duties of the director. And the director, in this sense, in the Chapter 90B laws, is the head of the environmental police. And it kind of it spells out what the director can do. And one of the things that was spelled out was that the director can set the maximum speed limit. And the interesting part about that is right after it says, the director shall set the maximum speed limit, it says providing that the maximum speed limit for jet skis is 12 miles an hour. So that's another avenue that we could pursue without having to ban a jet ski if that was not available to us. But there are options. Why I bring any of this up, because I will tell you, and anyone who's been in the meeting with me before discussing this issue, I am not a fan or really an advocate of banning anything, because I think that, it's, one, it's not effective. Two, it's not really the machine itself. It's an operator issue, which we're not going to help by banning a machine, because there's nothing to stop these operators from buying another kind of machine to ride around in a lake on. So, I think it may temporarily slow things down, but I don't think it's going to be a permanent solution. So, but if this becomes an issue with other lakes, and lakes say, well, we're going to ban them because we can, and it looks like they can, then as more and more lakes ban them, and they're not, there's no opportunity for the jet skis to go to those bodies of water, they're going to seek bodies of water that they can go to. So it's just going to bring our problems up if we allow them exponentially. So that's something that we should be considering, I think, moving forward at some time. So I think at the next meeting we can talk about that and maybe study further in between now and then, and we'll go from there. But I just want to float that out there. So that's all for me. Do you have any questions, Mr. Piker?
No, just a comment at this point in time. The no-wake zone buoy in front of the Half Moon Cove has been removed and put on the shore on my property, as I typically do annually. As people know, I like to report about the eagles. They still appear to be around. The lake has less usage, obviously. It's a little murky from all the rain, and I think there's been some reports of some cyanobacteria blooms as well. That's it at the time being, Mr. Chair.
So one thing I did forget in my report, and I'm glad you brought that up, is there was a cyanobacteria bloom in the front of my house last weekend. So I went down, because I'm a citizen scientist now, so I went down and did my water test, and when I went there, it was a beautiful shade of green all in front of my house, probably for, I'm going to say, 100 feet on either side of it. And it was like thick green, place you couldn't see the regular lake underneath it. So that was, I sent the picture to Jacqueline at the time, and Jacqueline's response on text was, wowzer. So I'm thinking that's probably not a good thing. But she followed up and said that was probably the worst bloom of cyanobacteria she's ever seen. So it's out there. This time of year it happens. I think probably, and people don't have a lot of, we don't, the science, I guess, isn't so firm that we know exactly what causes it, or how long it stays, or even how to get rid of it in some cases. So, but it could be that, the plants of a lot of the plants' life has gone down this time of year. They're already died, so they're not eating up the nutrients, and there's less and less competition for bacteria like cyanobacteria to thrive. So maybe that's what happens. But I would caution everyone, and folks who watching at home, is that you want to, first off, it can be toxic, and we're going to find out, because they did a test on the stuff in front of my place, and I don't know if that's going to be in the report from Worcester's Lakes and Ponds, but it can be toxic to humans. It's certainly toxic to your pets. So if you got dogs and they like to hang around in the water, make sure you go out in front of your house and make sure there's no green slime or green particles or anything like that on your shore. Same things go with, obviously with children and family members and whatnot. I don't think there's too much livestock on the, drinking out of the lake around here, but if that's the case, I would also not let them do that, because it can be very dangerous. Okay, thanks, Mr. Piker. Sergeant Garman.
We've been off the water since October 1st, so I really have nothing to report. But with Indian Lake, since we have that small boat, I think I brought this up before, I'm gonna look to station it over at Flint Pond. It's just trying to find a location to station that boat with some type of MOU between the city and the place we can dock it at. I know the old Point Rock has the condos over there, and I don't know if there's docking stations over there that we could possibly dock the boat at, but since we don't really use that at Indian Lake anymore because it was mostly there for the jet skis, I'd like to station it over at the Flint Pond area, because that's the only boat that can access that, and rather than the boat sit around. That's something I gotta bring up my command staff, but it's an idea that I've been running by them for the past, month or two and stuff like that for next summer to solidify some of the police presence over in the Flint Pond area, since we're getting a brand new boat for bigger body of water at Lake Quinsigamond.
Okay, that's fantastic. I have a dock space you can park at, your own little private dock space there. So.
Because the boat just sits at the station
Yeah.
right now, because
So that's, so if you want a dock space, it's a dock space. I don't know if driving into Shrewsbury is acceptable, but, to get there by land, you'd have to come to the,
no, it's understandable, but we rather than transport it all, because right now I've been using the Shrewsbury Police Department
yeah, okay,
launch area, because our launch area is
right.
cockeyed. So
Yeah.
when we back the trailer in, we don't know if we're gonna get out.
Oops.
So we've been using the Shrewsbury Police
Right.
Department launch area when we put the small boat in. Like they had that snake run the other day. We had a launch from over in Shrewsbury because
Yeah, okay,
our boat area is it's a disaster.
right. So, yeah, there's a dock space that's fine. It's a nice dock, 30 feet, 5 foot wide.
All right. I'll run it by them.
Bumpers.
Unfortunately, I'm a sergeant, so I got to go up the chain of command and get the final approval.
Okay,
So I'll talk with my captain and Captain DeAndrew's on the thing and see what he can.
yeah, if you want any backup from the commission, we'll be happy to,
I'd rather be on the water 1 or
Yeah.
2 days over in Flint Pond than boats just sit at the station.
that would be, I think would be make a big difference,
Okay.
safety-wise. Thank you. All right. That's it? Any questions about that? Mr. Polito?
No report.
Okay, thank you.
No report from
No report?
Grafton.
All right. Maria, you're on the list next. You
No
want
report.
to say a few things? No? Good.
No, no
All right,
report.
fine. Mr. Nelson?
Just a couple of comments. The rowing is sort of slowing down due to the cold weather. There's still people practicing at, for masters races, and that'll be going on probably through the end of October. And of course, the college crews are out there. But more importantly, the boat club is about to switch over to cold water rowing rules. No singles out by themselves with inflatable life vests, cell phones, and a whistle in case they get into trouble. That's all I have to say.
Cool. I like the life vest thing. All right. Perfect. Through that, and item number 7, item number 7, Town of Shrewsbury dock addition at the Donahue Rowing Center. Gentlemen, come on up.
Oh, they're not on? Oh, so it's.
Ron?
Usually takes a few minutes.
there we
to
go.
warm
Oh, so we're going to watch
up. Movie.
movies. Is this streaming, Mark, or is it Shrewsbury Cable?
None of the above, I don't think.
Which one is it?
One, isn't it?
Sandy, it's your computer again.
I know, we had it working last night.
Oh, it's on.
It's on.
Yeah, it's good.
Good. It's not?
Is it on that one?
Yes, same thing.
Computers.
No? I mean, they have hard copies, so it's just, it was more for the audience than anybody, so.
All right. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Well, thanks for having us. My name is Keith Baldinger, Assistant Director of Public Works. And this is Andy Truman, Town Engineer. We're here to talk about the new dock project at the rowing center. And some of this work's gonna start right after drawdown begins. And Andy's gonna explain a little bit what we're gonna be doing.
So you have a half-size set of the handout. So what we're doing is to look into putting a permanent fixed dock for the coach boats to launch off of. Obviously, the existing dock that's out there right now is in a sad state, is probably an understatement, so we're going to pull that out. But because it is a new dock and it's going to be publicly accessible, it has to meet ADA requirements, which is why it has to be fixed, so that, you know, people in wheelchairs and restrictions can get down to the dock. Typically, it would be a floating dock, but this is a fixed dock. So the way we designed it, working with you know, the town's architectural team, is it's going to be installed on helical piles. So really, the logical time to do that is when the drawdown does begin or it's commenced. So we did do a design for the helical piles, the dock. You have a copy of them, as well as a walkway down from the existing parking lot down to the new dock. We got approval from Conservation in September. We put the project concurrently out to bid. The bids had come in a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, they came in significantly higher than we budgeted for. So at this point, we're trying to figure out what we can get done this year with the drawdown, because obviously we need to get the helical piles in. So at this point, the plan is to put at least the helical piles in, you know, this fall, and then come back next spring, and, you know, once we've got through budgeting, to figure out how to put the rest of the docking and then the walkway. So.
Yep, so the dock project, as he says, includes the piles, the actual dock structure itself, and then the floating docks for where the actual boats park, and then the AD compliant walkway. So our intention right now is we feel we have the funds for the piles, and we're going to move forward with that. And then in the spring, we will, once we have our financial model figured out, we're gonna put this project out to bid again. That'll be the dock work and the sidewalk work, and most likely that'll commence next summer to complete that. But if we put the piles in now, that allows us to get this completed next year, as opposed to waiting till drawdown again next fall and delaying it a year. And it's the docks themselves, I think, will obviously be a great improvement, but also will help the schools with their larger boats with their rowing teams. So we're happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Peter?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. Just to confirm, this is for the docks for the coaches' launches, not the actual one in front of the Donahue?
That's correct, yes.
Do those docks need to be removed to put the piles in?
No, but the reality is they will probably be gone before the piles are put in. The piles will be put in all from shore with a small machine, and they're actually the design that they come up with really doesn't affect those existing the floating docks that are there now.
But they'll be essentially in the same location where the existing
Correct,
launch
correct,
docks are. So I have a third and final question. It's getting down that bank and up.
Yep.
For years, people have been complaining about. What is going to be done to make that access to the new dock a little better?
Well, that's the whole point. So because it's going to be a fixed dock and it's a public dock, we have to make a ADA compliant pathway. The engineering team has designed one that'll work.
So yeah, if you look in the plan, you'll see there's kind of a serpentine sidewalk to make sure, it's under the minimum slope. So it kind of starts, kind of right at the top in front of the existing docks and then kind of, snakes back and forth on itself to get down to the dock. That way we're under the 5% slope that's for.
So there's some requirement for the access to citizens who are disabled, that
Correct.
ramp can't be above a certain angle?
Exactly, 5%. If it's over, if it's over
5%.
that, then you start getting, start getting to handrails and it gets very expensive. So as long as we keep it under 5%, typically we design them at 4.5 to give the, the contractor a little bit of flexibility. But yeah, this is just a paved walkway, so, they can get up and down it pretty easily. And it's really, it's pretty flat at the top. It's only really probably a little bit steep just getting down, but yeah, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So the footprint of the new dock is going to be the same footprint as the existing dock?
I would say no. So
So you're expanding it? Or
Yeah.
are you contracting?
Yeah, so the existing dock kind of sticks out perpendicular into the water. This one's actually going to run, parallel to the shore, almost where the steel cofferdam is. We're going to butt it right up against that. So it's running parallel to the edge of the shore. It doesn't stick out into the water.
Okay, and the launch boats, because the launch boats now are on the dock, or do they come out every time they?
It depends on the individual school's crew coach. Usually when they're busy, they stay on the dock. As soon as they stop practicing, they generally get pulled out. And each school has a different schedule for when they start and stop practicing.
Okay,
Yeah. So we've made it long enough, probably you can get probably 5 or 6 different. So the idea is we'll have this fixed platform, and then we'll have the floating, dock from that, and then they can put their own platform off of that, whatever they need, if they put a floating dock for their own needs. But
so this system, so basically what you're building here is you're kind of building access to a floating system.
exactly, yes.
So basically, there's going to be a dock that's
Yeah, and then
runs
they'll have the
parallel
gant-
to the
yeah.
shore. How far is
Exactly.
that going to stick out?
I think it's about 10 feet, I think,
10 feet?
10 or 12 feet.
So
The structural drawings.
you're saying it's accommodate 5 boats, so it's, I guess I'd look at the plan.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really know. I mean, it's about 12 feet wide, and I think I made it, because I know I designed it, we had a structural engineer, because obviously it's more framing than civil. Just checking, it's 115 feet long. So we think probably, enough for 6 gantry floating docks off of that.
Okay. And the coaches, I guess what I'm getting to is that this sounds like it can turn into a significantly bigger system that's in there right now.
yeah,
Like a marina size,
much safer too.
Yeah.
much safer,
Yeah.
but a lot more docks.
Yeah, but it's certainly a lot more flexibility for, everyone to have their own access.
Okay, and so each of those folks would need to come in front of the Lake Commission.
They would have to come in for that,
Well, the
To add on.
the town would still own the dock system.
Correct, but
And then-
right now, you're asking for approval for a dock that sticks out 10 feet, that's 115 feet wide, running parallel along the shore. That's not the dock system we're going to end up with. So if you build out 115 feet wide, you could put 5 slips on that, 5 runs out, and then build slips off the runs. Yes?
Correct.
So you could go out 20, 30 feet, 40 feet,
Yeah, I don't think we can go actually limited to
Well,
how far we
you-
can go, because then we will affect,
will affect the rowing, but, we want to make sure there's other navigational issues and things like that.
Right.
That's really our concern. Our concern also is materials and all that, how the dock's built. That doesn't seem to be a problem. As we discussed before, I'm not a big fan of pressure treated, because you got to treat it. And if you secure that with fasteners on top of the dock, that means you have to treat it in the water. So that's not, for us, it's not environmentally, I mean, there's certain, New Hampshire, for example, you can't even use pressure treated in a fresh water anymore. So, there's a lot of communities that do it. I think Massachusetts probably follow suit with that. But, that's a concern I have, that that may not be, 2 concerns I have. One is, as a commissioner, that may not be a healthy thing for the lake. And as a taxpayer, it may not be a good economic plan. And I understand that pressure treated, and I understand all this. This also came in a lot more expensive than you thought, but pressure treated's only at least less expensive the first time you buy it. So if you don't treat that, you're going to be replacing it at some point because it's wood.
Sure.
It's just going to, the sun's going to beat the crap out of it, and that's what's going to happen. My concern is that the dock has a potential to grow, and we have no idea what this thing's going to look like. Or if individual schools are doing it, what they're going to come up with. Based on their budgets and all that stuff. So, I don't.
So the schools will not be supplying a dock. The town is building the dock, and we will supply the floating sections for the schools. And then-
So it'll be,
and then-
that's what I'm getting at.
and
So
then-
it'll be a one type of dock.
Correct. It'll
All
be-
the
it'll
same.
be all uniform, and
All
the
uniform,
intention is
okay.
that, the initial intention is that these spaces there will be a rental fee for use.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not gonna be open willy-nilly to anybody that wants to use them, so what we may do and what we have discussed, and trust me, we have not fully gone through the process yet, as Angela just left, so we're figuring this out too, but, we may purchase the floating sections all at one time, but that does not mean that we're gonna put them all in the water at the same time. Because maybe, for example, only 2 or 3 schools decide to, lease these from us, then we would only put what's needed in at the time, so that way there's no unauthorized use of docks, going forward. So, we have a maximum number that we can fit, we know that.
Do you know what that number is? Can you share that number with?
Like, the plan is 6.
I think we figured it's 6 probably,
Yeah.
double bays for each one, so.
6 double bays.
Oh, they could launch from each side.
Either
yeah.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
Left
not,
enough
you're
room
not
so
planning
they
on
could
putting
have,
fingers on the end
yeah,
to go parallel or perpendicular to the run
correct,
out.
yeah, I think I
Correct,
This
correct,
is going to be, there's going to be straight runs out.
correct.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question on that subject? Is this diagram on page 4 the diagram of your proposed new dock?
That's my layout of it. There should be a structural set in there too, which is more frame, but yeah, that's essentially the layout. I mean, obviously the structural engineer tweaked it a little bit, but yeah. that's-
Okay, so my question then, if that's a rough approximation of the way the fixed dock's going to be, and you're going to have 6 floating docks out of that, half of this dock is directly behind the existing dock where the shells get launched from. So anything that sticks out on that half of this existing dock, such as 3 of your 6 floating docks, will be either bumping into the existing launching dock or blocking access to it. So it sounds like this existing dock, from what you've just described, only half of it can be used for the coaches' launches.
Well, actually, we measured that. Todd actually gave us a measurement. I think at the furthest point of that dock closest to the existing one is 40 feet from the nearest point on that, the Y-shaped dock.
And if 20 feet is used for a floating dock, that allows only 20 feet out to the existing dock. That is just too tight for 60, 70-foot-long shells to be launched without bumping into the coaches' launches. So either that area will have to be used for just coaches' launches or for shells, but not both.
Okay.
Bill, you're launching boats on the shore side of the,
Yes, they use both sides,
okay,
both for coming in and going out.
okay.
And both sides are required for the number of people who use it.
Right, so what's the width of that thing with the oars out? Well, the oars are kind of in at that point.
Okay, the boat there and the oars, so you've probably got at least 15, 16 feet.
Okay,
And when they push off, most cases, they push out so that both sides have their oars in the water before they come out, so that doubles that to 32 feet. And so 32 from your 40, it doesn't leave a lot of room to put in a lot of floating launches.
All right, so, that's something to keep in mind. And, so, just the length of the existing dock out there, what was the length of that? The one you have drawn here on the,
The proposed one,
no, the existing one. It doesn't exist, is that what this, that's?
well, the existing one is going to get taken out. The
I
one
know,
that's-
but I was just looking at the length so I can get some.
it's probably 50 feet at a guess.
50 feet? Okay.
Yeah, that's going to come out.
So there's a potential for this to be 50 feet out, which doesn't look like it'd be in the way of the lane.
Yeah. I don't think we would put it 50 feet out.
Yeah.
I don't see us coming.
I'm just
that
trying to get a
far
feel
out.
for what this, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I
guess
think-
it's hard to ask you this because you don't.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things we really we don't know until we
That's
realize
why
the use.
I would really prefer that you came back when you were going to put this out there.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Each addition, you know, each
Yeah.
scaling that you do with the thing.
Yeah, I think once we,
That makes sense?
absolutely, makes sense.
How wide are the, will the runs going out be?
I think they were 8. I think they were 8 feet wide.
Yeah.
8 feet wide? Are they going to be low profile or standard height dock?
I'm assuming they're just going to be a floating modular system, so,
When I say low profile, like the dock here, the Y-shaped dock, that's a low profile dock that you can, you know.
I mean,
launch a crew boat from.
I mean.
You mentioned that you may use it for additional launching of crew boats.
I mean, they make a variety of systems. I mean, the last time I did a floating dock, which is on the Concord River, it was a 12 by 12 modular system, and you just snapped them together, and I think those were only about 18 inches high, and they just, you know. you
Yeah,
snap.
I don't think we'll be launching crew boats from here. This
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Specifically.
So this is, so it's going to be a
Specifically
standard
coaches'
dock.
This is
boats.
just for coaches.
So, and, you know, the modular pieces that we put in place may be directly, the length may be directly related to whatever school's boat. Like maybe, you know, I think some of the school's boats are like 22 feet long or 25 feet long, so.
The launches boats.
The launch boat.
Yeah,
So,
launch
you know, the school may have that long boat, another school may have a shorter boat. I don't really know, but.
Okay.
You know what I mean? We would adjust the length to whatever the school or team suits them best.
All right. And I guess the final comment I'm going to, one other question. The permanent dock is how much of that is actually on land, on shore? Any of it? Or is it all?
But it's going to butt right up against the steel.
So it's all going to be in the water line?
Yeah, we're going to try and keep it as tight as we can to the existing coffer dam. The only technical bit that we have to connect is obviously where the sidewalk comes on board. I think.
Yeah, no,
it'll
I'm.
probably deviate a
I'm
little
on-
bit.
More on the water side of it than the shore side.
Yeah, it's going to hug the shore as tight as we can get it, really.
Okay.
When we lay it out, so
So, and this is 10 feet wide?
12 feet wide, I think, is what the structural.
The
Yeah, I'm looking at the structural, like, then, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
12 feet
it's
wide.
12 feet wide.
Okay.
It's 10 feet for the
Yeah.
piles, I think.
You know, so the only other comment I'll say on this is that, you know, a permanent may be a strong term. You know, in my experience, especially on Lake Quinsigamond, and especially that part of Lake Quinsigamond, you know, you have a heavy ice movement. And if the ice comes in, it'll take it out. You know, the piles are good, but it'll take out the piles. So, you know, that may be something you should look at. And it happens all the time on this lake, in that area.
Okay, we can,
So that's something you gotta keep in mind, because
Yeah, so we
it
can
may
still-
be in there for 5 years, it may be in there for 15 years, and nothing will ever happen. But one spring, you know, the right day, the wind moves in the right direction, the right time, and it pushes a bunch of ice down. And nothing's gonna stop it.
because I think, and when that was one of the questions when we were bidding, is how deep these helical piles are going, and I think the structural was saying that they're probably 20 feet deep, these helical piles. so-
The ice took out a bridge on the Niagara,
Oh, yeah.
so, you know, there's not a lot that
We
could
can't
stop it.
defy nature, unfortunately, so.
Yeah, I know, and, you know, we had one that was put in illegally on the Worcester side, I think 2 seasons ago. You know, and we had a discussion with the owner of the property, but, you know, we went back and forth in this, and, you know, the Worcester Concom and the city's handling the, you know, that part of them being fined and whatever they're gonna do to it. But but I said to her, that it doesn't matter with any of that stuff, that dock's gonna get destroyed right there. And she basically kind of, you know, scoffed at that. And the next spring, the ice took it. Or I shouldn't say took it out, it damaged it, so all the piles are now crooked.
Okay.
So, so it's kind of not safe and it's crooked, and you can't obviously level it because it's attached to the piles. So that's just something to bear in mind. So, that's
Good to know.
Chair, I have a question.
Mr. Chair?
I have a question.
Okay.
Andy, when you're going to use 4 ramps,
I think I showed 4 originally, because because of the way
Correct.
the other dock is. We really don't know what the use will be, so those will be kind of added on as we figure out what the use is and what they need.
So I'm just getting back, do you think we'll be all right with the Conservation Commission? Because we approved the 4. Do you think you'll need more for the
I don't
order?
see, and I think the bits that stick out are gonna be like gantry docks, just, so they could be pulled out when we're not using them. If we have to change them, we'll certainly come back.
Okay, that's just the thought, just
Yeah,
so we
I
have.
mean, we'll keep it in
everything.
mind. Like I say, it's kind of, we don't exactly know what the final product is at this point. We just know that we have to put the fixed bit in it because for the ADA requirements, so.
Right.
So you have the order anyway, so
Yep.
all you have to do is come back and
Yep,
just.
if we decide we need
All
more,
right.
we'll modify it.
I mean, ADA is gonna require that you have, I don't even know if they require actually if it's fixed, because I know a lot of spaces that it's ADA compliant, but it goes onto a floating dock.
You can do it with the floating dock, yeah.
Yeah, so, and the fact that it doesn't have to be permanent. It could still be removable, even if it was fixed. I mean, even if it was if it's a fixed dock, a dock on legs, it could still be removable, and that would qualify for ADA. All they want to make sure is that you got, a 12-degree pitch going into it and the right.
Yeah, the issue is-
And it's 56 inches wide.
Yeah, so it's that, because obviously the lake does fluctuate, so it's that articulation in the gantry you've got to be careful of, because you can get into
Right.
trouble.
I mean, if you go down, the state did it at Regatta Point. So you go check those out, and they got a nice ramp going down onto the floater, but the transition between the floater and the floating dock is more, probably, 14 or 15 degrees, isn't that?
Yeah, it's one of those somewhat gray areas, but.
Yeah, so, it's there. I'm just talking, again, back from being a citizen point, I don't want to have to replace this thing, because it looks like it's going to be expensive. Looks like it's going to be really nice. I think it's going to be a great improvement. But, I think it'd be better for you if you only had to do it once.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
One last comment. I noticed in your existing drawings here that the existing launch ramp is at the extreme far end of your proposed new dock. The reason the existing ones are out there is because over many, many years of rowing experience in the lake, it was found anything closer than the location of the existing ones interfered with the launch docks. So I'm just wondering, why did you decide to move everything in tight, close to the launch docks, and not consider the place that has been used for launching the coaches' launches for the past, I don't know how many years?
It was basically driven by the grades, because obviously that's a lot lower than the existing parking lot. So in order to get an accessible route down to that point would be a lot more intrusive.
So you're saying it was driven by the access on the land, not by consideration of the use of the docks and the water?
Yes, it was really what was the easiest way to get, someone in a wheelchair down to the water level.
We could end up, and I just want to get this said before anything gets built, we could end up with something very easy to access from the land, but in the wrong spot to use it from the water.
Well, I think the flexibility of having, the 115 feet will be able to.
Of which half of it is behind the existing launch dock, so maybe three of the floating docks could be launched on the far end of it, and all of those are even closer than the existing launch docks. I've said enough on it. I'm just a little concerned of the fact that we're going to end up with spending a lot of money to build something that's not going to be as usable if it wasn't so tightly configured. That's it.
That's it? Any other questions? Okay, so, any law enforcement
Peter?
issues? Sergeant Gutman? Oh, sorry, Bob. I couldn't see you.
I just wanted to support what you said about freeze thaw and the ice movement, that there's no chance that it's going to last. It's definitely, I'm in a butter, and it's definitely going to be a problem. I don't have a map, so I don't know what, how big the footings are. Could you tell me how big the helical coils are, what the diameter is?
How big they are?
Yeah, what's the
Well, we do a performance spec, so they have to reach 7,000 pounds is the loading. So I think they're probably 12 or 18 inches diameter, and then they have to drive them down until they get, you know,
Yeah.
the correct tension.
Okay. And did you get a determination of applicability from Army Corps for putting in a permanent?
Well, this
thing
is
into the-
Army Corps, this is not subject to Army Corps. Army Corps is navigable waters. This isn't a navigable water.
What do you mean it's not? It's a lake. It's a main.
A great pond, yes, but that's not subject to Army Corps.
It is.
It's up DEP. DEP will need a Chapter 91 permit for DEP for the dock. Yeah, but Army Corps is navigable waters.
Because
so-
that was their DEP's comment to the.
Yeah,
comment.
DEP, yeah, we will need a Chapter 91 for DEP for the.
And they also said you should just get a determination of applicability from Army Corps.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
That was in DEP's thing?
Yeah.
All right. You got to get those guys straightened out.
DEP, yeah, we know we have to go to DEP, but typically DEP wants all your other permits in hand before you go to them, so,
Right, okay.
yep.
I mean, it has to get, this, from our standpoint, everything has to comply.
Yes, so,
All right, so that's,
so once we get this and we've got our order of conditions, we can start the process with DEP.
yes.
Garen Zahagian, 12 Tamarack Lane, Shrewsbury. We're also, I'm Bart's husband, abutters. I'm really nervous about yet another proposal to make significant changes to the lake waterfront without specific diagrams, measurements, pictures, artist renderings, whatever you got to do. Already you're discovering that it doesn't really work for what the QRA wants. And so I'm very concerned that this project would proceed without having a full understanding of what the final is going to look like. The other is, what's the current capacity for coach boats of the existing arrangement? How many can we accommodate?
At one time. Because they may not all be in there at one time, right?
No, understood.
Or they may not need to be in there.
I'm going to your comment, Pete, of, is this going to
Best
get a
estimate.
bigger, are we going to end up with a big marina, basically? Or are we keeping the number of coach boats basically static? We're just building new docks?
I don't know the exact number, because as Peter said, it depends on each college or prep school's schedules of when they're in the water and out of the water. The best I can say is the existing docks are fully utilized when the largest number of coaches launches are in there. And the additional coaches launches that they use for the assistant coaches are the small aluminum boats, which they have the crew members put in the water for each use and take out of the water for each use, because there is not enough room on the existing docks.
So I guess there's an answer to the question. Like, you guys must have done some kind of calculations about how many boats could be accommodated by the new systems.
So I don't have that number. I can say that this dock project has been driven by the school's coaches. That much I do know. I can certainly get information on how many.
Okay.
Good enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Garen. This wasn't what I was expecting, to be frank. I thought that it was a kind of a completer, is completer a word? Kind of a more complete plan. So I guess that's my concern, is I thought this would be more of, here's what's going to be, and this is what it's going to look like, and, so we can say, all right, it fits in the parameters and we're all set. I didn't realize that we're going to, approve something that's not complete. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what the end product is going to look like, and as you just said, you guys don't know what the end product's going to look like.
When we're approving we're looking at the structure on the shore, basically, and And
I'm comfortable with that.
correct.
Right.
And from what Andy has said, once they have the configuration of what the fingers would look like, I'm sure he'll come back and say, okay, this is what, they're showing 4 fingers. And then they can show us what the docks will look like.
Right, so I guess what I'd like to, suggest is we approve this. We approve the part where where you're putting on the Healy coils, in other words, the fixed part of the dock. And that we, defer any type of approval for the rest of it until they build the rest of it. Or they come back with a plan for the rest of it. Would that be fair to you?
Yeah.
Yep.
Would that be fair?
More than reasonable, yeah.
Yep.
Because I don't, where you put it, and you can fight with the rowing people at that point and say, well, you should have put it over here. And then come back to us and say, yeah, we need another 115 feet. So, but, I don't want to approve something that you can't see. That's fair.
Oh, yeah, no, but at this point, we were just looking for the permanent structure to be approved. We
Yep.
weren't anticipating.
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
yeah,
so,
put on the
fine, all right.
crystal ball and figure out, because we don't know. That's
Okay.
it.
So you're not asking for approval for the second part?
No, just the permanent dock at this point.
All right,
And we'll come back when we get the
Mr. Chair, can
configuration.
I ask another question?
sure.
You said this has basically been driven by the coaches. Have they seen detailed plans and looked at them?
So that's my understanding. There was a coaches meeting, I believe, in September that Angela attended and showed them this plan. That's my understanding.
She showed it to them.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Any input from them?
All I know is that they want us to move forward. I can't speak for each individual coach because I wasn't there at the meeting.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
You all set? Okay.
That's a tentative approval for the.
Well, we got to still vote. So I'll take a motion that we vote for, the plan as it exists.
I make a motion, we approve the plan presented to us tonight for the permanent dock structure.
Right. And do we put a covenant in there that any other additions to that has to come back?
That's all we're approving is the dock structure, so they said they would come back.
Okay.
We'll even come back prior to, when we have the final plans for the actual dock. We'll
Right.
talk about materials.
Yeah, I'm sure you can figure it out. I mean, once it's in there, you'll probably say, okay, now we got to do this or that, and you can.
Yeah, it's- Yep.
But if that's fine. I just want to make sure that, all of a sudden we get on there and it's, 20 slips.
No, I think, no.
That's not our expectation.
No,
That's
Jet skis parked on them.
No.
All right. Okay, so, is there a second?
I second.
second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Very good. Thank you,
Thank you very
gentlemen.
much.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, item 8, discuss and review expanded no-wake zone at the Corzini boat ramp. There's something else under here, review and possibly approve regard, we just missed a number. So item 8 is only discuss the Corzini boat ramp, no-wake zone. Yes?
Number 8, discuss and review expanded no-wake zone, and then we forgot a number for the
Okay,
crew regattas.
all right. So that's 8 3/4.
Sure.
All right. Okay, so, and this is people here, can I just get a show of hands of who's here to speak on this particular article? Okay. So what I'm going to ask is that, I'm going to let everyone say their piece. I'm going to ask that we keep it down to, a 2 or 3 minute thing at the tops, because there's a lot of people to go through. And that it's going to, I'm going to keep everyone on a short leash, so we just don't get out of hand based on some past experience. And I want, so if I do ask that, you stop speaking, I want you to stop speaking. So I'm not planning on really cutting anyone off, besides it's either running too long or inappropriate language or you start going after someone personally. So there's none of that going on. We're not going to, it's not about personalities or anything else. It's just really about the issue that we're talking about. Is that agreeable to everyone? Everyone understands this? All right. So, Garen, if you want to speak first, you're welcome to do that. If you want to defer to, defer to kickoff to the second half.
Somebody else has to say.
Okay, I'm just offering you the first chance if you want to get up.
Appreciate that.
You're the author. Okay, so, anyone else, Patrick, come on up. Again, state your name and serial number.
I'm Patrick Diggins. I'm from the Quinsigamond Rowing Association. Two things we wanted to mention about the proposed buoy placement is the proposed ones will actually directly interfere with both launching and landing of cruise shells, actually in the direct traffic.
This is about the new dock or the no-wake zone?
I think he said.
The buoys.
The buoys,
Proposed location.
the location.
The proposal, I'm sorry, okay.
Right, isn't that what we're discussing?
Yep.
Mr. Chair, quick question. Was
Yeah.
that comment about the existing location or the new
The
location?
proposed location.
The proposed
Okay.
location,
Yep.
and based on this photo that was circulated, I'm not sure if this is is this the actual proposed?
Yeah, it's got a little,
Yeah, all I'm addressing is the proposed.
okay, fine.
And the buoys are in locations that would directly impact both the launching and the landing
Okay.
of shells off of the dock. Yeah, especially launching, but pretty much the same with landing as well. Additionally, just the placement is something I mentioned in my email, that installation of those anytime before Memorial Day would put them directly in the race course.
The proposed buoys.
Correct.
Okay,
Actually, any of those buoys, even the existing ones going in before Memorial Day, would impact the race course. Those are pretty much our comments. We just don't see it as a workable solution. Thank you.
thanks, Patrick. Okay,
Single next, Mr. Chair.
who's next? Does anyone?
Good evening. My name is Michael Ohl. I am a board member on the QRC, which is the Masters Level Rowing Club, and also a resident of Worcester, and I am an active rower and coxswain. So I actually am one of 5 regular members of our club who are responsible for safely getting crews on and off the water and keeping the boats and people safe. So I appreciate the Commission's focus on safety on the lake, and have a couple comments, some related to the existing buoy arrangement, and then some related to the proposed alignment. For the existing arrangement, it can be difficult at times, especially for the master's level. We often row early in the morning, launching at like 5:15, 5:30. And as the seasons change, especially this time of year, it'll be dark. There's one buoy that I believe has a light on it that has continued to be functional, but otherwise it's a shot in the dark really as to whether or not you're going to see a buoy in time. The other thing that would be helpful is the centerline buoys more or less are aligned. But some of the other ones that are closer to the Worcester shore or the Shrewsbury shore aren't necessarily in a straight line, so it's hard to find a line to track through and not hit something. So we would respectfully request some consideration of modifications of the existing buoys. In terms of the proposed configuration, I overheard, and I don't think it was your intent to put an obstacle in, but that type of configuration would be a nightmare. So I'm not sure exactly what the problem is that we're trying to solve, but if we're trying to keep safety in mind, that configuration in particular would just significantly impact safety in a negative way. So based on that configuration as proposed, we'd ask the commission to reject that.
Okay, is that that it?
That is it.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone up? Ann?
Good evening. My name's Ann Zedek-Sumner. I am a lake abutter, as well as a very active member and coxswain at the Quinsigamond Rowing Club, the master's program that Mike just referred to. And I moved to the lake about 18 years ago, so I totally understand what happens in terms of wakes, boat activity, and the consequences thereof. I live on the north end of the lake, and I'm also on the water almost every day of the week, either rowing and or sailing. So I have a good understanding of what's involved in terms of the reality of the lake activity. I just wanted to describe as a coxswain, over 15 years, I have been on many different bodies of water, so I'm not nervous about obstacles, etc., but I am very concerned as a coxswain about the positioning of the current buoys, and I absolutely concur with Mike's assessment that should they be configured closer to the dock in the proposed arrangement, they would pose a significant hazard. I can navigate very well, and I feel that way. You have to imagine that what these boats, the long boats, are over 60 feet long. They are steered, they are maneuvered with a rudder that's the size of a credit card. And you've got the engines, so to speak, on both sides. They're not, and we're, in our view, in the back of the boat is completely obstructed. So it's a challenge. I love it. I'm passionate about it. It's all feasible, but especially at slow speeds when you're launching and you're landing, the ability to make a turn or to make a maneuver is hampered. So the slower the boat, the more difficult it is to maneuver. Not impossible, but every hazard has to be accounted for and addressed. So I wanted to just give you the perspective, finally, of the coxswain who is either in the stern of the boat, but sitting down much lower than most people in a regular boat, in a motor boat, for instance. You're probably 4 to 6 feet up, elevated, as opposed to being basically at level surface, or maybe 2 feet above where my head sits up. And in some cases, the coxswain is lying back and you're basically at water level. The view there, the ability to see obstructions it's challenging. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about what it's like to maneuver rowing shells, but I wanted to give you that perspective and express my concerns.
Anyone have a question? So one question I have, based on this particular thing, so what you're basically saying is you can't see the buoy. If there were a light, because it's not lit. Can you see the lit buoy?
I'll give you my perspective, because I'm out there in the dark, is that when you are coming from north to south, and whether it's lit or not is very of little consequence to me because of the fact that there is traffic, car headlights coming down North Lake Ave. are basically coming right at us, and they are obstructing seeing it. And there are also lots of other shoreline ambient lights that also, there's a light here, there's a light here. You can't tell very clearly what's on the water necessarily, as opposed to what is not something directly in front of you.
Okay.
It's, I don't hit them every time. I don't hit them a lot of the time. And lights will absolutely help other boats, but from my perspective, as a coxswain in an 8, in the dark, the lights are only helpful when you're 20 feet away.
Okay, so when you,
But I'd recommend every one of them have a light
okay,
for other boats.
right, so, all right, is that, anything else? Do you want to have any questions for Ann? All right, thank you, Ann, very much. Anyone else on this issue?
Take up the rear. Garen Sahagian, 12 Tamarack Lane, Shrewsbury side. I didn't expect this. So it seems like the rowing community has as many problems with the current configuration of the no-wake zone as with my proposed configuration. So I find that interesting because the no-wake zone was never intended to protect the QRA. It was intended to protect the ramp. And all of a sudden, we've got ourselves, without any question, the largest no-wake zone in the state of Massachusetts. And I'm not even sure my answer is good anymore now that I hear the objections about the accessibility understood. One option would be to just cut the QRA ramps out of the no-wake zone. It was never intended for them anyway, and then we won't be in their way. And there'll be a tight semicircle of buoys around the ramp. Again, when I came up with this proposal, I was not aware that Brownie Beach was to be protected as a swimming area. So again, the measurements I did was based on having that available space. When you do the new math, you're right, it would leave about a 50 to 100-foot corridor down the middle that you could go at speed. It doesn't really make any sense. So I don't really have a good answer to this. I think the Corzini ramp needs more protection than it used to have. I think we've gone a little bit overboard in terms of the response that we have in place right now. And in fact, the rowers sounds like they have problems with it as well. And I also would point out that I think we're setting a little bit of a slippery slope precedent here, where if we're going to extend 150 feet out from everything on Lake Quinsigamond, we're not left with many navigable areas, gang. You know, I know Kings Point is on the agenda next to go to no-wake zone. If you start applying that to the areas between the islands, between Drake Island and the mainland, we're going to end up with very few places where you can go anything but headway speed. So I would just express that we're taking liberties with Great Pond in Massachusetts that are basically effectively substantially compromising the ability for the public to use the lake. So I don't have a perfect answer for it, but I think there could be some compromise where we don't have to have shore-to-shore no-wake zone and still protect the Corzini ramp. Now, again, I don't know how Brownie Beach plays into it. I don't know what the development that's going, you guys are aware there's a big development going on right over there. I don't know if are they intending on tying resurrecting the Brownie ramp? Are they going to turn that into a waterfront area or anything? Do we have any idea?
They're building a park over there on Plantation.
Yeah, the park's across the street.
So it's going to be parked separate and distinct from the lake. It's not meant to connect to the lake.
My understanding of that is, but to tell you the truth, I can't speak to how that will evolve. So I'm not sure.
So, you know, in conclusion, it's very clear what we've done here is we've regulated to the worst-case scenario. So we've regulated the no-wake zone to the highest volume weekends in the middle of the summer, when I agree, we need more enforcement, more safety, more everything. However, that's probably maybe 8 weekends a year. Again, okay, we can do it that way, but then that creates a no-wake zone that basically has no purpose for a majority of the year. Just want to point that out. Now, I don't know if law enforcement is going to be willing to be reasonable about enforcement of the no-wake zone. In other words, on a given day where there's literally nobody on the ramp, there's no other boats around, and somebody goes speeding through the no-wake zone, are you guys going to be able to apply the judgment and make the judgment call that, okay, this person was acting in a safe manner even though they went through the no-wake zone at speed?
Can I speak on this, Chair?
Sure, of course.
So, we gave a lot of verbal ones this year, but it was the aggressive voters that we ended up citing for wake zone violations. And I mean aggressive voters, like, they're taking off from 0 to 35, 40 miles an hour, like, from the dock, flying, when is an issue. And the issue with Browning Beach is the wake zone actually resolved a lot of issues this year on the Worcester side, because they like to lift the jet skis up and over the barrier over there, bring them in the water, and then from that point, I call it the fishing point, because everyone goes over and fishes and barbecues and stuff like that. They like to do donuts right there, and by doing a donut, you've already caused a wake, and our guys are able to enforce that strictly this year, which helped us tremendously in years past, because we'd get 20, 30 people there, and they'd bring 2 jet skis in, and they would, show off for their friends, where when the no wake was put in there, it helped us tremendously, because now they're 100, 200 feet down, down more, where they're not celebrating, them jumping a wave or doing donuts or something like that. It's a catch-22 in the wake zone, I'm not gonna lie, because it is large, and sometimes I think it's congested because everyone's going at a way speed. Especially on busy weekends, it's been congested a few times. We've been sitting out there, and it's a congestion type of atmosphere. I also find it beneficial. Not saying the length of it is beneficial, but I think something that incorporates the ramp and Browning Beach, I think, is highly beneficial to the lake. That's my personal view on the no wake zone. I think it is large. I'm not going to lie. I think it is large, but I also think it's beneficial between the ramp and Browning Beach.
May I respond? Is that all right?
Yeah, so I get into a big back and forth.
No, and very brief. Thank you very much for the work you've been doing, because the most effective thing that we've done, we live directly across from the block house, the brick house, was have a cruiser sit there. On the days the cruiser sat there, there was no one at Brownie Beach. The days the cruiser wasn't there, not so much, in and out, back and forth, but definitely diminished traffic. So I'm not sure it's the no-wake buoy that's right off there that's really doing it. I think it's your presence that's really doing it, but that's just my comment. So it's a tough issue, guys. I don't claim to have the answer, and I wish there was an easy answer, but I think we ought to consider living with this for a while and seeing if there's maybe some other alternatives down the road. I don't know.
We say living with this, living with
With it how it is, and many people have gotten used to it. I mean, to be frank, the lake residents know when the police are on the water. Okay.
Not that we would take advantage of that.
So read between the lines there that we understand when we're going to be enforced and when we're not going to get enforced. It's pretty straightforward. So, and as long as we're willing to operate on that kind of a basis, where the police are willing to use a judgment-based approach to enforcing the no-wake zone, I think we could all live with it. But if it's going to be a case where an environmental policeman shows up from off the lake and decides that he's going to stick it strict to the letter of the law, I have a problem.
The way I've asked my guys to enforce it is, it's kind of like speeding cars. You give 10. You know what I'm saying? Anything over, so we're good with 12, 13 miles an hour in that no wake zone. I'm being honest. You know what I'm saying? I mean, headway speed is, it's a slow speed. It's like driving on Mill Street in Worcester. It's a 30-mile-an-hour zone. You know what I'm saying? When you hit 41, you know, usually people get pulled over at 41. You're doing 39, you know, it's a wave and stuff like that. And, you know, it's not really enforced. It's the same way that I've told my guys to treat the no-wake zone over by the ramp. You know, if they're doing 15, 20 miles an hour, you have to give some type of warning. If they're doing 35, 40 through the no-wake zone, it's got to be some type of written citation. You know, if you're doing 6, you know, of course, that's, you know, you're fine, but 12, we're probably going to leave you alone. 20, you know, we're going to give you a verbal warning. You know, it's new to us, and we're trying to keep the lake safe for everybody. And, you know, it's kind of like Indian Lake. Most of the violators are non-residents. You know, you know, the problem with Indian Lake with the jet skis was you know, non-residents that were coming in and causing the commotion. And a lot of these non-residents aren't aware of the rules of the lake. You know, it's new to them. So we try to, you know, give them the benefit of the doubt too, to a certain extent. But, you know, if they're doing 35 miles an hour, it's their first time in the lake, we'll give them a verbal warning because they've never been there before. But if they pass through again at the same speed, you know, we're gonna write them up.
Appreciate that. That's really all I had to say. I'd love to be able to come up with a solution that was happy for everybody was happy with, but it sounds like no matter what we're going to do, we're all going to have to compromise to some extent. So,
Yep.
thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Gary. So, does anyone have any comments or questions?
Yes, I have one. I was glad to hear your comment about the new positioning of the buoys in front of the launch and recovery docks. I guess for full disclosure, I should mention I'm a rower who rows out of Donahue every morning, though I'm not on the board of the club. I consider these really two separate issues. I agree with you, there's lots of controversy about the no-wake zone. There are many ways it can be looked at, and that clearly probably needs more effort and work on it. And I agree with your suggestion, maybe we should leave it the way it is for a while, or maybe we should think a little bit more about it. But the other point, which I think is very important, Patrick mentioned it, the QR, from the QRA, the representative of the QRC mentioned it, was that those 3 buoys, if they, and you mentioned it, were put in the new position 50 feet out from the end of the launch dock and the recovery dock, they would simply interfere with all of the 8s going in and out and create a safety issue. So as that definitely, I think, is something we should consider not doing. The wake question, we can continue to address. That's my comment, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Wells?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Mr. Chair. I think a lot of people have heard that sometimes the world is ruled by those who show up. Well, I didn't hear one person here tonight who says, I use the Quinsigamond ramp to put my boat in and out, you know, every weekend or anything. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I saw one person here make any testimony about that at all. I also, as a commissioner, have personally encouraged people who have feelings about the Quinsigamond ramp in terms of launching boats and wakes to show up tonight, so let your opinion be heard. Hello? Hello? That's just it. They're not here, so be it. You know, we've had this discussion. And maybe short of some tweaking of the ramp as it is, and I believe we have to take these moorings out shortly, right? Because we're not going to leave them in the ice to freeze, correct?
Oh, they'll
So-
be okay.
So, but the point is, there'll be,
They're coming up.
okay, so there'll be replacement of them next spring anyways, so maybe we can tweak it a little then, because they have to come out shortly anyways. But again, I just wanted to make that comment, that if it was important for anybody who uses the Quinsigamond ramp and they had such strong feelings about it, they could have showed up tonight. This was a public hearing, we advertised. They're not here, they're not here, so be it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, just a question. The issue of the lights, there was only one buoy, I think someone said, that has a light on it.
Currently,
Two?
yeah.
So
There
when they-
were more, but they were something happens.
Yeah, so when they come out of the water, they'll be replaced, or do they get monitored?
Yeah,
or-
you know, I guess we can ask to add lighting onto it, you know, to make things more visible.
Yeah. And may I ask one more
Sure, of
question?
course.
Does it matter whether, I mean, you see, someone was mentioning ambient lights and the headlights from North Lake Ave. If that light was a different color, would it matter? You know, you see red lights or you see a blue light?
I think the concern is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the lights coming from the headlights actually blind you.
Period.
You can't
Okay,
see, you
yeah.
can't see anything. You know, that means it happens if, you know, you get,
That happens on my way home on
yeah, just, well,
140.
the sun does it, you know.
Yeah.
So any light in your face is gonna.
Got it.
Gonna affect your visibility.
I understand.
So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Anyone? All right, so, you know, certainly we can consider maybe tightening up the course, the no-wake zone a little bit. And this may be the biggest no-wake zone, and I never really drilled down on that on a great pond. It's certainly not the biggest no-wake zone in the Commonwealth. You know, the Great River is a bigger no-wake zone than this, by far. So, you know, I think that in my mind, the issue we have here and the reason we wanted to do this, and it really wasn't about the rowing docks. I mean, in fact, you know, the rowers, it has helped the dock, and it's certainly good for the town and the taxpayers of the town. But, you know, you know, when you look at the area, and the problem with Lake Quinsigamond is that Lake Quinsigamond, you know, it's a 775-acre lake, so we sound big. But we have the characteristics of a 30-acre lake. You know, we're basically 500 feet across for, you know, over half the lake. And, you know, that's not the characteristics of a 775-acre lake. It's a characteristic of a much smaller lake. And we're extremely busy. We have 2 public boat ramps on it, plus some things that aren't so public. And we have boats coming in and out all the time. And, you know, there wasn't a lot of people here that, you know, launched their boats at the Corazzini ramp. But, you know, you have to bear in mind, you know, almost everyone who puts their boat in, except for people on my side, put it in at Corazzini. So at one point or another, they're putting their boat in there or not. You may have someone come down there and put the boat in for you, but, you know, the boats are still going in there because every boat on this lake goes in either one of those 2 ramps. So that's that. But, you know, as a commission, this isn't a commission of, you know, we're representing just the abutters and just the people that live in the town or the city. You know, we have to represent, you know, the safety of the lake, and this is a great pond. So it's a great responsibility that we have to kind of, you know, go through the safety of it in an overall fashion. So it's not just about, you know, the people that put their boats in and out and the problems you're having at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday because it's just wild out there. You know, that's just the way it is. You know, you look at other places on the highway and, you know, you kind of compare this to the highway thing, and, you know, boating in general has been an interesting, you know, evolution. When you think about it, boating and automobiles kind of came along, motorboating and automobiles kind of came along right around the same time in history. You know, the early 1900s. Early on the automobile side, they figured out, hey, we need some rules here. You know, we can't just drive around. We need lines. We need, like, you know, speed limits. We need stop signs. We need all kinds of things. We need an operator's license. People need to be educated on how to drive and follow the rules. They need to be tested. For some reason, none of that happened with motorboats. None of it. You know, we don't have lines on the lake. And when we do, you know, they're usually in the way. So, you know, it's curious to me that, you know, as a society and moving forward, and as people have, you know, they have to deal with regulation, that, you know, we don't have better resources in those terms. And I know that some states around us are, you know, they have operators licenses and they're moving in that direction. And I think it's a really good idea. I think Massachusetts would certainly do it. And, you know, there's 4 pieces of legislation that have been stalled in the legislature right now for the last, like, 2 or 3 years that that address this in one fashion or another. So, you know, we have to take that into consideration. But from a safety standpoint, if you want to compare this with a road, you know, this is basically the characteristics of a thickly settled area. You know, we have a rowing, you know, whether we, you know, we didn't put this in by design to deal with the rowers, but we have rowing there. I mean, it's there, it's reality, it's what it is. Browning Beach, you know, they shouldn't be there, but they are, and that's a reality. And it's, you know, not always easy with the resources that we have to monitor that from the street. So it's there, and, you know, it's a small patch. The other thing about that is that, you know, they don't actually align exactly. So we have to consider that. But I do believe we can tighten up the width of that, not the width shore to shore, because I think, as the sergeant pointed out, that's been very helpful. But, you know, we may be able to look at tightening up the length north to south. You know, I wouldn't, you know, I would certainly be comfortable with that to make sure that we're doing it. What I don't want to do is, you don't want to put a no-wake zone. That was the problem, and this is, you know, one of the reasons that this came about, is that no one, there's been a buoy, a no-wake buoy, in front of that ramp forever. It's always been there. So, not always been there, but it's been there as long as I can remember. I've been on the lake since '88. So, no one abated, because it was tucked in, you know, about 100 feet from the actual shore of the ramp, and no one even knew it was there. And people would tool by that thing real close to the buoy, you know, on their merry way. And it did affect boats. And I saw videos and slides from the Coast Guard Auxiliary of some of the stuff that happened at that ramp. So, you know, with people going in and off of it. You know, we've had people fall out of their boats there, almost drowning one year. There's been accidents. So, you know, my consideration is that place needs to be, you know, tamped down just a little bit. And it's help law enforcement enforce the rest of it. So I think that, you know, we need to, I like Garen's idea of kind of leaving it in place with maybe some slight modifications, so we can see if this is actually going to be a good thing. But if you put the buoys too tight, by the time anyone slows down the boat, because there's no brakes, unless you're jamming it in reverse, which people only do once or twice before they, you know, destroy their boat, you know, there's no time to stop and no time to not cause your wake. And when someone's going 13 miles an hour, 14 miles an hour in a typical runabout, that's when their wake is actually the biggest it's going to get. You know, because the motor's digging down, the bow's up in the air, you know, so you got to be careful with that. There's some other things there, and from a visibility standpoint, you know, one of the things the rowers, you know, I know you didn't intend to do this, but basically, you know, I'm kind of more alarmed about the response there than when you kind of came in, because you know, what I'm hearing is that you can't see where you're going in the dark, in the morning. That's not, you know, that kind of concerns me, that you're driving down there and you're blind. You can't do that in a motorboat. You can't do that in any other vessel safely. If you have a blocked field of view, that's kind of concerning, because it could be other things on the water that, besides a buoy, that you could hit. So I'm concerned about that. You know, these buoys are 3 feet in the air and they're white with orange stripes on them. Some of them are lit. You know, in the crew boat, if you're facing backwards, you know, you're still up to you to watch where you're going. And I believe, because I was in that coaches meeting in September, that's still your responsibility to know where you're going. Is that?
That's correct.
Right. So, you know, that's something that, you know, I guess we have to address there. And the other part about that concerns me, and Bill and I discussed this, we've discussed this previously, is that if you can't, you know, I agree with what Ann said, that, you know, from their perspective, they're like right on the water. So she's probably, you know, or, you know, a normal person's probably not sticking up more than 3 feet or so when you're sitting in that shell. So, you know, my concern is that if you're in a motorboat, you know, with a bow in front of you, and you're going at a safe speed, because the speed in the dark in Lake Quinsigamond is 20 miles an hour. So if you're going 20 miles an hour, that means in a runabout, your bow's in the air a little bit, you know. So something that's 3 feet tall is going to be hard to see at night, especially in the fog, or in the dark, I shouldn't say at night, in the dark, in the fog. So it becomes a safety hazard. And I know that the boats have lights on them, and I know that some rowers wear lights on their head, so you got that going for you. But some of those lights I've seen on the crew boats, I mean, the bow lights, a bow light sitting on the bow, you know, so it's kind of like not very high, so you can't see the thing. So I'm concerned about the visibility, not just of the rowers not being able to see the buoys, but people not being able to see the rowers at that time of day. So those are my issues with you know, in kind of in a general sense. But you know, I believe that area is getting tamped down. And you know, I went down and I've checked it from shore, I've checked it from the water, and I think that you know, it has seemed to be calmed down a little bit over there. So I think it has improved things. And again, in a general sense, that you know, you've been asking, the challenge with us up here is that you know, we have to make decisions based on you know, the greater good, or we should be doing that. So when you look at the safety issues on here and you look at Facebook, and it's like, you know, the jet skis are going crazy and everyone's doing this and people are jumping my wakes and, you know, guys don't know what they're doing when they're driving the boat and all this other stuff. And we want safety, and we want, you know, law enforcement when it's not us. So, you know, we want them to kind of tamp down, but as long as it doesn't kind of inconvenience us to do that. So I'm not a proponent of making the entire wake a no-wake zone. I can tell you this, and I won't mention any names, but the second that went into Corazini, someone requested that they do it in front of their place right away in a different part of the lake, and it's like, you know, okay, we don't want to, you know, have a trend of this. The Kings Point, the Narrows of Kings Point, you know, technically speaking, don't even need no-wake buoys because that's no-wake by default by state law. It's a block view. There's no way you can be 150 feet from shore no matter where you are inside that narrow, because I think it's only 137 feet wide. So there's no way you can, you know, you're gonna, and there's a swimming area on both sides of it. Basically, at Lake Park on one side, and the guy's got a swim dock on the other side. So we voted to make that no wake a couple years ago, and we had, you know, the vote at the time was we were going to put signs up on the wall, which didn't seem to be feasible, just with the geography of it and the visibility of the signs. And one thing that I've learned with law enforcement is it's got to be obvious, you know, where things are. You know, speed limits, do not pass, whatever it is, especially in a boat where there are where there's not a lot of education and people don't know what's going on. By the, you know, if you're a captain or you took the boating course, you know that because of the visibility and because of the width of the Narrows at Kings Point, it's no wake. But without the buoys on it, and I've had people tell me this, they go, I'll slow down when you put buoys up. So, you know, we still have to do it. And, but, you know, those are really, if there's any other areas that become a safety issue, I think we should address them. But, you know, the goal here is to make things safer and more productive for everybody. So that's my comment on that.
Item 8 3/4, Mr. Chairman.
What's that?
Item 8 3/4, Mr. Chairman.
Oh. We're moving on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Suggestion.
8 3/4. Review and possibly approve Quinsigamond Rowing Association's regatta for April, May of 2023. A question, Patrick, come on in. At the meeting, what did we discuss was the release dates for the fall races? Next fall. When do we?
Do you want me to pull up minutes?
Well, I just want to, you know.
I don't remember.
I know that last year we kind of like.
Well, we decided the spring races would be the October meeting.
Right.
Right.
So, all right, and then when?
I would guess maybe May?
May, okay. It's earlier than we did it
Seems-
this year, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought there was some discussion.
It used
For
to
some reason, I
always
was
be-
thinking it was, we're going to do it all at once.
The spring ones used to be November, and we moved that up to
right.
October this year.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
We've submitted all of the the race permits for the spring racing season based on all the race schedules submitted to us by the local schools, as well as the larger regattas that we hold in May. We're actually up one regatta this year. The U.S. Rowing Association asked us to host the Northeast Junior Championships, which is actually the qualifying race for all of the high schools in the Northeast to get to the U.S. Rowing National Championships, high school championships. And we actually had a weekend open this year, which is unusual. So we told them we would apply for permits, and everything worked out according to plan. And we'd move forward with them. So we are up one weekend. We're up one major race weekend. We're down one smaller race weekend. We have no racing scheduled for the first weekend in April. And the spreadsheet that we sent indicates the dates that we'd request ramp closure as well. We've also, we've applied to the Office of Fishing and Boating Access, I think, and received our permits from them. Because they actually also moved their opening date for applications up to, I think it's October 5th this year, so we applied on the first day it opened.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Is it about the schedule?
No?
Okay,
I have one question.
sure.
These all don't require law enforcement on the water, do they?
Yes.
All of them? Okay, on the water, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Be careful
They
what you ask.
require a brand-new boat to be on there, too. Okay, so otherwise, poor guys can't do it.
Yes,
I'm asking because I know environmentalists, they're shorthanded, they asked us a lot this year, so I want to.
and they're gonna, I'm sure they're gonna
Yeah,
continue to.
it's,
Because they like to spring it upon us like a week before.
yeah,
Can't
what
fill
they try to, because the way it's set up, Shaz, I guess, is that they have right of first refusal for the
Yes.
shift. So, because it's a great pond, and then, they're trying to get someone to do it, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, well, maybe I can do it. Let me talk to my wife, and, then it comes back, and the day before, you get a call, say,
It's like the one at the end of October, it's like, we're doing it, now we're not doing it, then we're doing it again, now we're not doing it again, now
Yeah.
it's.
yeah, I'd like to, I'd like to.
Bounce it back and forth, my guy, you gotta do it again, no, you can't do it.
Yeah, I'm hoping to kind of communicate that and ask them for better communication for filling the shifts, because it does cause a burden to Worcester and Shrewsbury when that happens, because then you guys are scrambling.
Yeah.
And we had an event down there one time, we had to literally beg a Worcester PD guy to come down and we had a function at the regatta.
Yeah.
So we had to beg someone to come down, because the EPO got it. Not only did they not show up, they didn't tell us they weren't showing up. So we're sitting there.
Once these permits are issued, the second phase is for the environmental police permit, which is signed off by the Shrewsbury police
Right.
chief. So then all the police forces would be notified at that point, but
Right.
we need the commission approval before we submit.
So, and what happened with that is, from a scheduling standpoint, they're not going to do anything until,
Right.
May. All right.
Mr. Chair, for the record, for the 5 weekends of closures from the end of April through pretty much the end of then May, is it still understood that if residential butters who wanted to go from, say, the north end of the lake down to Route 9 can proceed along the Shrewsbury shore?
It's right on the
Wake
permit.
speed?
It's on the
It's
permit.
right on the permit.
Okay,
yes.
fine,
Yeah.
as long as it's,
They have to obey by this, or,
thank you.
Yep.
I think they just shut down the race. I don't think they,
These are all the short races, right, from the Route 9 Brit? like-
yeah, so those are all
Yes,
on
2,000
the
meters.
north.
2,000
I need a
meters.
route-
All right.
These are all have most of the race course in.
Could I make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we accept then the program and the schedule as presented?
Please.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so voted.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick. All right, so Moving on, number 9. I'm only going to say that once. I'm not going to keep saying number 9. Discuss and review existing dock placement at property between 348 and 356 South Quinsigamond Avenue. Okay, there's proponents here?
Yep.
Come on up and
Front and center.
sit in the thing.
Serial
Just announce
number or no?
what your name and, that's fine. Announce your name and address.
I'm Nathan Davidson, 351 South Quinsigamond Ave, and this is my father, Carl Davidson, at 347 South Quinsigamond Ave. And I'm here because you gave me a call saying I could not have my dock where it is. And I have deeded rights to the piece of property. It's part of my estate, and I don't see what the problem is there.
Okay, so, and you understand that a right-of-way is not considered,
It is not a right-of-way.
okay, so it's not a right-of-way.
It's not a right-of-way.
And if it's a right-of-way, it's not, doesn't give you the distinction of being a landowning abutter. So, this was brought to my attention by another lake abutter, that there was a dock on a right-of-way. So, traditionally in the past, there's probably other docks and right-of-ways in Lake Quinsigamond too that we haven't gone after proactively just because of the resources and, there hasn't been a problem. So, if it does come to our attention, we do have to address it and the dock needs to be removed. In this particular case, and I got the documentation a little bit later than I wanted to get it out to everybody, but my read of this is, they gave us deeds going back to the 20s, I think. It's 1924 was the first one I saw.
Yeah, 1900, I believe it is.
Yeah.
1906.
Anyway, on the deed, it actually does say two things that would make me feel that this is not a right-of-way and it was meant to be used for the purpose that they're using it for. So essentially, it was part of an estate, which I believe that the Davidsons ended up buying
own
the
the
entirety
estate,
of,
yes,
the
yeah.
entirety of, with this piece of property that they defined as a court.
Yeah,
It
it's
goes
listed as a wharfage and court.
wharfage and court. So
Yes.
it's got the term wharfage in it, and it's also got the term that these folks are tenants in common. Tenants in common are the same thing if you all look at your house mortgages, is how they describe you when you own your house.
Correct.
So, so that would tell me that it's not just an easement, as would be the case in a right-of-way, it's actually ownership. They made the mistake of going to the town, so now they're trying to figure out how they're going to tax them back to 1900, but,
I got plenty of land, they tax me and all that.
so, but,
I couldn't even give it to them.
so for me, at least until, if this becomes a property dispute, that's a land issue and not something we have to
Yeah,
deal with.
I had reached out to the selectmen, and they had looked into it.
Right. Well, they're not going to deal with a property dispute either.
Yeah, no, but he looked at what I had, and he kind of explained it, that I was, we've been there since 1951. My grandfather was the one that originally bought the property, and we've maintained it ever since. So, and we haven't had a single issue down there. Occasionally when a new neighbor moves in, there's a little bicker back and forth, and then we work it out, we get along.
Okay.
So we maintain it, keep it clean, keep it cut,
All right.
keep it safe.
How long has the dock been there?
1951.
Okay, since 51's been a dock there?
Not the same dock. It's
So I'm going to make sure that this material gets distributed out to the rest of the board. But, like I said, the terms of tenant in common and the fact is it defines wharfage in there as one of the uses of the land. So it does say, and this is a land issue, not a commission issue, that you need to keep the land clear from the development and all that stuff, so.
Yeah.
It will be an issue with us, if I could, Mr. Chair, if you, for instance, didn't or haven't applied for a dock permit for your dock in front of your deeded property. And if you have a dock permit from the Lake Quinsigamond Commission, or your dock in front of your deeded property. That's all of issue to us.
Well, he does have one, but that, you know, we have dock permits out there that are off of right-of-ways, which.
Yeah,
we
actually,
shouldn't-
Ron, Gouch had looked at it initially.
Yeah, so this, in this particular case, I think we're good. That's my comment today.
Yeah.
I think
That's my
there's
I have no other.
there's evidence of ownership, and I don't see this as a right-of-way. And this is the same, tenant in common is also, or land in common, ownership in common, is the same exact precedent we set years ago when we approved docks for condominiums.
And the residential abutter who may have issue with you, you may have to say, well, why don't we just then go to land court where, you know, frankly, we believe we're lawfully in the right, and you're gonna then have to live with it.
Yeah.
If that's the adjudication.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
land court, and should be that.
Yes.
Right, from our perspective, from my, you know, my perspective here, I don't think this is an issue. So, I guess, do we need to vote
That's it.
that we're gonna leave this in here for now, or?
Well, we haven't seen the material
Okay,
that you
all
have
right, so we'll do this, but I'm not gonna order the dock out at this point. And we'll get everyone to review the material.
All right. Did you get the copies we got? Yeah,
I
know
did.
They're,
I have 'em.
they're pretty hard to read.
Yes,
so.
I took out my trusty Sherlock Holmes spyglass
Okay.
and went through them again, because the cell phone was okay, but it wasn't as good as the magnifying glass. So, which you will all need to read this. All right.
Just
That's
one
good.
last comment, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
If, for instance, you were to have your dock on your deeded property, on the property line, and you had your boat on the side of the dock, which was thus then, so to speak, in front of your abutter's property, you know, that could be an issue. We might ask you to put the dock on the other side of the wharf and maybe move
Yeah.
the wharf over a little. But if that's not the issue here, that's not the issue here.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other part about this is wider than the typical right-of-way in Lakeland City. So, all right. You have a little bit more room.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Okay,
So is that holding for next meeting to review material?
correct.
Or are you all
Yep. Thank you. Update the lake management plan, including, I'm gonna kind of go through this quick. The drawdown, we got our permits in place, so the drawdown is going to happen on or about November 1st. We will send notices out that's going to take place. We still have not got a weed map unless there's an update from Worcester Lakes and Ponds about weed mapping. Oh, hold on one second. We'll defer that to your report. The pilot study for natural heritage, we have not heard back from Natural Heritage, and I'm not sure what the issue is on that. That concerns Half Moon Cove and Old Faith Road, because we're asking for permission to continue the treat in Half Moon and to expand our treatment in another protected area at Old Faith Road. The update on the invasive plant species is that we did treat in some areas this time. Newton Pond did get treated to the full extent, so we moved up on that. We did not treat on Flint Pond. Update, which we will be doing again next year. Update, we will be treating again next year. Update and act on proposal for drawdown permits, we already did that. Oh, Newton Pond. On the Newton Pond one, that is also not moved forward, and Joe can probably help us with that if he gets on to the Conservation Commission, because that's one of the holdups over there. And the update on the Grafton CPC project. Any update from?
I haven't heard back from Joan since we discussed it this morning.
Okay. The vendor's looking for money, so we gotta do that. But I think that the project, and what I have not heard from TRC yet is how they made out with the core samples. An update from number 11. Update from Worcester Lakes and Ponds.
You want me to go sit?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Although I've come to realize you don't need a microphone.
No, I don't. So, I need need my laptop for this one. So, my name's Alyssa. I volunteer with Jacqueline Burmeister on the Cyanobacteria Monitoring Commission, whatever that abbreviation stands for. So she gave me some notes for you guys. I just spoke with her Saturday. As of Saturday, we're just waiting for the map to come in from the vendor. They had some last minute questions. It should be in her email box this week, but she is out of the office. So hopefully in the next couple weeks, and then the next step will be an RFP. So we need to figure out who's gonna write that.
Can I ask
Santa-
a question, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
We're talking about weed mapping?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me reiterate that we also received some correspondence besides the comments I made at the last commission
Yep.
meeting about the,
Lake.
I use the term gross amount of weeds that seem to have grown just south of the Lake Avenue pumping
Yeah.
station, as well as the increased weed growth between the Lincoln Park Towers and the island there.
Yep.
That needs to be addressed. I just want to take that opportunity to say that. Another thing I asked, and I don't know if you're about to bring it up, but at the last meeting I asked, geez, can the city of Worcester give us any update on the Bridle Path pumping station? They've been working away on that, and would it be unfair, Mr. Chair, if I know somebody here tonight who might have something to add about that in terms of what the state of that project is? And if you don't have anything to add, is it okay,
No,
Mr. Chair?
do you have other stuff?
The mapping was done in the past couple weeks, so it may or may not include that growth as
I'm
a
gonna, I'm
result of Lake
gonna,
Pond.
I'm gonna predict it was.
Oh, what?
I'm gonna predict it was included
I
in the map.
would think so, but
Yep.
I cannot confirm myself. Cyanobacteria monitoring buoys, one of them kept flipping over, the northern one, so they put some weight so it shouldn't. And as of this, it should stay until mid-November.
Okay,
They'll remove them then. The cyanobacteria, as Peter mentioned earlier, we got the results just this morning, so I'll pull that up so we can talk about it.
how'd Flint Pond go up?
Not very well. Hold on, let me pull that back up. So, where'd my tab go? Okay, so we have Newton Pond is low, Lake Quinsigamond is elevated, Flint Pond is blooming. It was very high levels, even just from processing the samples. It was gross. So, but you did mention that this is a common occurrence. Jacqueline they're gonna figure out what we're gonna do next fall with that.
Okay.
But since we did a lot more sampling this year with the cyanobacteria, we were able to do it twice a month versus the 1 month, and we have a lot more people involved in the program this year. So they're gonna be doing a little get-together first 2 weeks or so of December in person as a big thank you to the volunteers who helped out, and then also the reports. It's gonna be a report of all the data, so any data that, if there's any spots that had data last year, we'll compare last year's data to this year. If not, here's an overview of what it looked like this year. So they're putting all that data together, because we just had our last sampling day this past Saturday. Yeah. Oh, and then, yeah, so we'll see how Lake Quinsigamond, Flint Pond, and Newton Pond fared over the course of the entire year. And then there's a new episode of the Blue Space Minute. This one is invasive plants and boat decontamination stations. It's available on YouTube. And then they have a new newsletter. It's called the Blue Space Splash. So if you guys want to sign up for that, tinyurl.com/blue space splash. Too many S's in there for me. But yeah, so they're going to be continuing doing their at least sampling in Lake Quinsigamond through most of the fall until ice prevents doing so. But we're kind of, the city is tapering off for the year with their water quality sampling. So there'll be a little bit just to kind of maintain through the winter. But yeah, that's all I got for you right now.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
What?
Okay.
Just the chair?
Yep.
May I ask, is somebody here tonight who can maybe give us an update about this sewer substation on Bridle Path that they've been working on for months, which I've asked, what just the heck is going on there? It's been a project that's been in process for, I don't know, most of the good weather months here.
Well, I don't know, maybe the person from the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association who's up next could,
Mike, there's somebody in the audience, Mr. Liberty, who may have,
It's simple, it's short. Basically what they're doing is they're replacing the pump stations. This is an auxiliary pump station that takes a transfer station that takes the sewer from Bridle Path area and brings it up to Lake Ave. But it's a total wet well replacement of what was there. So they're replacing all the pumps, all of the chambers and whatnot. I was just there this week and they're still continuing to work on it in the road and both onto the structure itself, but it's pretty well complete, meaning that it's probably gonna be online soon. But that's what they're doing around the city as well. This is just one of the 30 or so that they're embarking upon.
all right, well, thank you, Mr. I mean, it's a little bit of an update. I mean, this substation's right on the water's edge.
Oh, yeah, no, it's right
And
next
we,
to it.
and, you know,
It's
we
right
know the
there.
problems we've had with sewage stations on the water's edge, so, you know, they've been working away on it, nobody seems to know anything about it. It would be nice to know just what the heck's going on, thank you.
so it's still in process from the work they're doing with all the other pump stations,
And
right?
it is very
Okay.
close, like Mike said, it's very close to the water.
Yep,
There's a discharge pipe right next to it. I don't know too much about that yet, but eventually we'll have a screened-in, chain link fence with a generator on top of it. I don't know what they'll have for audibles or alarms if they have a problem, but that's essentially, but it's brand new replacement.
Right.
Replacing what was there.
all right. I guess that from our perspective, not that we have much control over it, but I'd like to know what the plan is if the pump house fails. What happens to the affluent?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Happy birthday, Mike. I wasn't supposed to say that, so.
It's Mike's birthday, so we gotta
Mike's
get out of
birthday,
here.
I know,
So I don't really have a report. We have,
except for that, Mike's birthday.
Lake Quinsigamond watershed meeting next Wednesday, October 25th at the Marine Corps League. That will be our last meeting of the year because you moved up your meeting for Thanksgiving, and then, so we won't have any more meetings this
I
year.
don't know when we're meeting, so we'll have to figure that out, okay.
Yeah,
Good.
that's it.
That's it?
Yep.
Thanks, Barb. Luke, you got anything you want to say? All right.
I can talk forever, but nothing,
Nothing about what we need. All right.
nothing for you guys.
All right, so, hey,
What's the next meeting date, Mr. Chair?
I don't know, is the honest answer. We have some conflicts in the room. One of the things I'm going to explore is moving this meeting to another venue. So that, there's some discussion with the town that we can move it to the library. When the police station gets finished, they're going to have meeting facilities there. But I'm assuming like when a new restaurant opens, that'll be a popular place and we won't be able to get in, right? So,
So is it possible it might be Wednesday, November 30th, Mr. Chair?
it may be if I can get another space. And the other, and don't tell Mark, Sarah in the control room I said this, but the other opportunity may be the DRC. So, so we have space, but I don't want to meet next week or 2 weeks from now. So that, just to be here. So we'll have to figure out what we're going to do. But as soon as that, I will inform everybody as soon as that comes out.
Make a motion, Mr. Chair, then we adjourn?
Second?
Of course. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.